So I just left Illinois, drove a little bit through Indiana, and now I'm in Michigan already. Today I'll be talking to Dale Painter, and he reached out to me after seeing one of my movies, and we had a pretty good conversation just through email, talking about the relationship between nature and Christianity, or organized religion in general. Seems like he's a pretty deep thinker and also pretty open-minded, so that's a good combination. And I'm going to be talking to him about his relationship with nature and how he sees God in nature, basically. Got about a 4.5-hour drive from Illinois to his place in Newaygo, Michigan, and I'm kind of rounding the southern end of Lake Michigan. This is the Warren Dunes State Park, so thought I'd stop here and get a little taste of the Great Lakes again. Ever since leaving my home in Marquette, Michigan, living right next to Lake Superior, I definitely miss the Great Lakes. And even though Lake Michigan isn't quite as good as Superior, it's a good substitute right now.
You know, I guess when we look at nature, you know, it's just not the physical world. It's creation, and being out in God's creation is just an inspiring kind of thing for us. And I think all of us have experienced that. You kind of walk at the end of the day into a deep forest or whatever, and the sunlight's filtering through, and it's dead quiet, and it's like a temple. It's a sacred place. And it's just a moving kind of experience spiritually. And again, I'm a person of faith, so I know that that's God's creation, and that He's created this place, and He's brought me here for a special place, and it just kind of takes your breath away. And it doesn't have to be a spectacular mountain sunset or overlook or whatever. Sometimes it's just those simple kind of things when you realize the grandeur of creation and what it means to be in it, and you just feel like you want to worship. So that has become a whole special dimension, I think, that makes the backcountry and backpacking especially very valuable. It's things I can't experience in church, although that's it's also God's temple, but it's different. I experience things in the backcountry spiritually that I can never experience in richness and the depth and that I can't in many other ways. It's hard to explain that to people. It's hard to explain that to my fellow Christians when I come back. It's just something that it's a spiritual realm. So it's a sense of feel and the power of all that, the grandeur, the simplicity. And I guess that just feel like that's very special times.
Back on the road again, leaving Newaygo, Michigan, to head over to the eastern side of the state, just outside of Detroit, and then I'll just be visiting some friends. So today's kind of a day off for me. No interviews today. It's really, really an interesting conversation talking to Dale. Obviously, he's a very religious person, pretty devout Christian, and obviously that colors the way that he sees the world and the way that he sees nature and the way that he sees things manifest in his life. Me personally, I'm not a religious person, but I definitely see the value in it. I'm definitely open to the spiritual realm and kind of the non-physical world and things that are much deeper than what we can see and feel in this physical world. So I've always felt like there was something there, but I never really knew what it was or how to talk about it or how to define it. Not being able to define it in scientific terms kind of makes it impossible to talk about for our society. So that's going to be a big goal of this project, is to just kind of explore what that means to people. left my friend's house just outside of Detroit. Left pretty early this morning. Already been on the road for an hour, and the sun's starting to come up, and it's actually a decent sunrise. I feel like for the past week or so I haven't really seen the sun. It's just been cloudy. So any little glimpse of some sunlight it's kind of uplifting. So I've got a long drive today, and then I'll be meeting up with Heather. Heather is actually a client of Tony's. She joined them for some of their guided backpacking trips, and she was pretty new to backpacking when she came to them. So she's going to be giving us a good perspective on what it's like to just start out backpacking, and talk about a lot of the things that kind of held her back, or things that she was worried about before she started doing her own backpacking. I'm also curious to talk about what her motivations are for why she wanted to get into this in the first place. And I also want to see if there's been any changes in her life since she started spending more time in nature. We'll be meeting up at a park, and we can shoot the interview outside, and then I'll be looking for a place to camp after that. After sleeping in a real bed for the past 5 nights or so, I'll be going back into my tent. But I'll be a little bit further south. Hopefully it won't be too cold.
Very kind of apprehensive at first, just because it's like, you know, you're going backpacking, you have to have what you need with you, and it's like I was really stressing about like there being like no room for error. And but I found out really quickly that you know, you just go with it, you know. I mean, as long as you don't forget anything critical, I mean, you're going to be fine. So one of the things is like paring down enough stuff. It's just like you kind of get a sense really quick as like what's important and what's not important. And so that's been, even now, it's like I feel like I don't take a lot, but I still feel like I need to get rid of more stuff. So it's always, I'm always learning something every trip that I go on from other people, just watching them, looking at their gear, things that they talk about. And so I always come away from every trip with at least something that I can implement for myself going forward. So one of the first things I did notice is how my brain does go quiet, you know, and I don't listen to music or podcasts or anything when I'm hiking. I'm just, you know, just in the moment. And it's like, because I had somebody ask me, it's like, well, you know, what do you do when you hike? And I'm like, I don't know, I just hike. It's like I never really paid attention to, you know, what's going through my head. And then I started paying attention, and it's just like, my mind's just quiet, you know. I've always struggled with depression, probably from teen years and stuff. And then maybe about 5 years ago, I was just under a lot of stress and ended up developing anxiety. And so it's been tough coming back from that. But that's one of the things that nature does for me. Like I said, even as simple as sitting outside, I mean, that helps me, you know, calm my mind down, bring me some peace, and it helps me, being outdoors helps, you know, with the depression. I get seasonal affective disorder, and even though I think I didn't have a bad winter, that first sunny spring day is like, oh my, there's a huge difference. So, but yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that I know helps me get through those things, and so that's why I try to make sure that I am getting outdoors, even in small amounts, just to keep that under control. Yeah, I think it's just you're cutting out like just all the noise of life. You know, you're just stripping away the distractions, and you know, you're in a different place, and you're all, you know, even though it's not like a survival situation or something like that, but you know, you do have a goal, and there are struggles, and you know, people support each other and encourage each other, and I think that just kind of just gives you the perfect groundwork, you know, for building friendships and things.
Just left the park in my interview with Heather Sipes, and I'm heading south about 2 hours to a campsite. Interview with Heather went pretty well. It actually kind of took me back to when I was getting into backpacking and how much I didn't know. I kind of take that for granted now because it seems like common knowledge, but there was a time when I didn't know anything, and I made a lot of mistakes, and that's how I learned. She had some good reasons why she was drawn to nature, and she had a good attitude about getting into it. She didn't let fear hold her back, and her advice to somebody else who's considering doing it but might be worried about the challenges or gear or anything like that. It's just to get out there and do it. And that's the same experience that I've had. I didn't know what I was doing when I first got out there, but I just got out and did it anyway. I made a whole bunch of mistakes, probably suffered unnecessarily, but it was a good experience, and I learned eventually, and it was good practice to kind of just think for myself and figure out how to do things on my own. Good morning. The sun was out for a minute this morning. Actually had a pretty nice sunrise. And then the clouds took over again. So it looks like it's going to be another cloudy day. So I'm in like central Illinois right now. I drove about 2 hours south of Galesburg last night and found this really cool place to camp. I've been in some sketchy spots, and this one was really nice. Driving in, there's actually a sign that says you're allowed to camp for up to 4 days. That's like just very reassuring, because a lot of these places you never really know what the rules are. If they're on that freecampsites.net website, it means that people do camp there, but you never really know if you're going to be bothered or not. A cop did drive by and he did check on me at like midnight last night. I think once he figured out that I wasn't doing anything bad, he didn't think he had to stick around, so he left right away. So today I have about a 6-hour drive into Kentucky, where I'm going to meet up with Fitty Shrimp. Fitty Shrimp is one of my hiking partners from the PNT and part of the Hey Duke.
Where's Fitty at?
Where Fitty at?
In the bush!
We go way back, and we haven't seen each other in over a year, maybe 2 years, I think, not since the Hey Duke. So that'll be good to see him. He's actually gonna rent a cabin for us, and we're gonna stay there tonight. And then I'll be just a few hours away from Tennessee, where I'll have my next interview. So today it's just gonna be a 6-hour drive through the countryside, I think. It's kind of nice that I'm getting away from Chicago and those city areas. I would much prefer to drive through the country. It's 2021, and it kind of feels like our society has been on a path of increasing chaos for a while, and all of that just exploded in the past year with 2020. I don't need to go into what happened because everybody experienced it. This is something that affected everybody. Along with the coronavirus, I think a lot of Americans especially have lost faith in our institutions, and that's something that's not talked about as much, but it's having a huge effect. We no longer trust our government. We no longer trust the media. It's not controversial to say that these entities have something to gain by lying to us. At the very least, they don't tell the whole truth because they have some sort of agenda or narrative to push. It's also not controversial to say that social media gains by making us scared and angry. The more we see things that make us scared and angry, the more we engage on those platforms, and they benefit from that. So with all these things, a lot of people are feeling kind of lost, and they've lost faith in all the things that used to offer stability in life. And I think a lot of people are looking for some sort of different path forward, something that's more reliable and less deceptive, something that's personal and something that they can trust. And I think a lot of people are looking for something that's going to unify us too. There's so much division going on right now, and I think we would all agree that we could benefit from something that everybody can agree on. And in my opinion, that's nature. I really do believe that nature and spending time in nature is going to be our path out of this. I think it's something that everybody can agree is a good thing to do. Spending time in nature can help us rebuild our foundation.
This is the Paddler's Wall of Fame, and it's here in my home at Bartlett, Tennessee. As a matter of fact, up there you can see created by Dale and Miriam Sanders, 2011, and we're still doing it. We're still taking paddlers into our home and letting them stay here free, and they sign the wall. That's their payment, to stay here and get food and shelter. But then I got my, little itchy feet, so I decided I wanted to do something really big and get off the Wolf River and get on the Big River and paddle the Big River. And I figured out that the oldest person to paddle the river was 78 years old. That was Vernon Kruger. Verlin Kruger, it's pronounced. And he did it at 78 years old, but I was 80 years old, and I said, I'm going to be 80 years old next year, so why don't I just do a source to sea on the Mississippi River and try to get a world record at the same time? So then I quit my job with the Wolf River Conservancy as a river guide and started training. I went up to Lake Itasca, which is the source of the Mississippi River, and May the 15th, solo paddled all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, 2,500 miles, and got that record as the oldest person to through paddle the Mississippi River. I even asked my Facebook followers, what do you think I should do for my next adventure? I got tons of things. Just tons of ideas. I singled in on the Appalachian Trail. I didn't grow up a hiker. I was a boater. I wasn't really a hiker. I was told, I can't tell you how many times the hikers told me you'll never be able to do it because no one can make the Appalachian Trail through hike it unless they have experience as a hiker. There's no question about it. It was the hardest thing that I ever did in my life. Nothing, no adventure or no job assignment or anything was as hard as the through hike AT at 82 years old. I cannot tell you how many times I was asked or told, I want to be just like you, or how can I be just like you when I get old? How can I stay healthy like you? And I came up with basically a statement that I can give. And in my motivational speeches, I always cover these three things. And those three things are, you have to learn how to live happy. No one can tell you how. There's no formula you can take and use to live happy. You yourself have to find the formula and live it to live happy. The second thing is you have to stay physical. You have to stay physical activity, indoors, but outdoor is preferred. You have a much better chance of warding off diseases and issues, health issues, if you stay active. And of course, the adrenaline of happiness along with the activity is really, really important to being healthy and fit. Right now, I'm 85 years old, and I'm as fit as I was at any time in my life. And the third thing is, if you really want to be happy, and that contributes to your physical as well, you have to have and live a good quality spiritual life. Now, I don't mean extremes on either end, but I mean a good quality spiritual life, and find how to live with your Maker. Find how to live and understand God. That is a big part of being one with nature, is understanding that I am part of that. I am created. I'm here as nature. I'm part of this whole cosmos of things. And with that good, positive, spiritual attitude. Now, those three things, if one can do those, they have a much better chance of living into their old age.
Had a really good conversation with Dill last night. We talked for a long time, I think over 2 hours. It was really illuminating to talk to somebody who has spent most of their life in the outdoors, and he's 85 now and he's still very active and in very good health. One thing that was really interesting is that people have been asking him how he does this, how he remains so healthy into his old age. And he actually got that question so many times that he wrote out his own answers. So he has like a document that he actually refers people to when they ask him that question. And basically in the document he explains how you need to have a healthy balance of mind, body, and soul. So just coincidentally, his sort of manifesto lines up perfectly with the theme of this film. And I think it's those kinds of coincidences that when you run into them, it proves that you're on the right path, and that it's a path that's worth exploring and going down further. So it was pretty awesome to hear him lay that out, and then for us to both realize that that's exactly what this movie is going to be about. So he's already been thinking about this stuff for a long time, and he has a lot of wisdom to share about it.